I'll open the regular meeting of the Board of Trustees and we'll start with the pledge.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
And call the roll, please.
Here.
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 Here. And as soon as I get my packet for the budget, or find it, we'll start the meeting. You mind if I use yours? Sorry. With mine in my office. All right, so item number 3 is public hearing and possible adoption of the 2018-2019 budget. Each of the trustees has a packet in front of them that just kind of is an overview of the budget we like to do every year. Loretta, do you have one? Okay, the department heads want one, they're on the back table there too, but I know you guys have been through it as much as anybody, so if we could just start with the overview, the first page is one that the board has seen before, and this is just a comparison of the 17-18 budget to the proposed 18-19 budget. So last year it cost, this is for the general fund, the daily operations of our village. The cost to operate our village on a daily basis was $6,966,358. This year we're projecting for the 18-19 budget $7,212,493, which is an increase of 3.53%. The revenues that we collect other than property taxes, they would be things like fees and interest income. Last year, we projected revenues of $2,070,658. This year, the economy's a little bit better. We're projecting revenues of $2,150,593, which is an increase of 3.86%, which is a little bit of good news. Last year, we took $275,000 from our fund balance, our savings, to offset the cost of running the village. This year, as I described to this board, we had a pretty good financial year as far as revenues. This year's budget takes $350,000, which still keeps us above the 1.1 million level, which is where I'd like to be for our general fund. But it's an increase of 27.27%. So if you take our revenues and put them against the cost of running the village, that means that we have to raise for this year $4,711,900 to balance the budget. That's an increase of 1.97%. That's what the 2% tax cap applies to, so we made it under the tax cap in this budget. We take that amount of money, that $4.7 million, divide it into the net assessed value of the village, which did not go up much last year. So some people may ask, well, what about all the development that's been going on? But that always lags a year. So when the CDS is open, then it will get reassessed and we may see a bump in that. But you have to remember that it's only going to be the difference between the value of the old building to the new building. So you get a gain, but it's not going to be what some people might think. So we take that net assessed value, divide it into how much we need to raise taxes, and that gives us a rate this year of $12.74 per thousand, which is an increase of 1.81%. If we go on, these are just, you guys have seen this before, and I don't think it's a secret to anybody, but the first graph is expenses as opposed to revenues. Our expenses are going up, and we all know what's going on with healthcare and other expenses. We're seeing a slight increase in revenues every year that's spawned by the improving economy, but there's always that disparity between the revenues that we can expect and the expenses, and that's where our property taxes come into play. Go to the next page. Healthcare has always been on a steady rise. We did see that the benefit of going to the high deductible plan in 2015, so we had that drop, but then it just keeps going up. What's not shown here is if we had stayed in the old style plan, where we'd be now. We're in much better condition, but as I told the board, the high deductible plan has been good for us. One problem that we have, it's a good problem to have, is our young workforce, with having children and such, has been using the health care. And the more they use it, the more your cost goes up. So we're still seeing, we're taking damage from that. The one glimmer of hope is in the employer retirement contribution. So that's the state's pension plan. So when we had the crash in the economy, the state's pension plan lost almost all its money, and they still had to fund the pensions. So what they did is they turned to the local municipalities and said, well, you have to come up with it. So you can see in 2003, we paid almost nothing because the stock market was riding high. When it crashed, all of a sudden the cost got shouldered to us. And now you can see that the economy's getting better, the investments are showing a better return, and our costs are starting to go back down again. So that's where things came from as far as the financial situation we're in. So just a moment to talk about the budget. So, you know, first I want to thank the department heads and the clerk's office for what they did in this budget. It was a pretty tight budget, but we came through the same as we have year after year. No reduction in staffing, no reduction in the services that we provide our residents, and no reduction in the special programs that we provide to our residents as well. So in this budget, we have continuing funding for the sidewalk reimbursement program. Our summer rec program is still in place. The events at the Flint House are still funded. The community garden, the boat rental program. And it says vehicle replacement in DPW and police, but I also want to point out that the other replacement programs that we've been building into the budgets for the last couple of years, the SCBA bottles and all those things, are still in there, so that we don't get to a point some year where all of a sudden we have to, an emergency, and we have to come up with a big expense. So that's been working well. Also in there, one-time purchases, the laptop for the fire department, the computer for the police department, the ice rescue suits for the fire department, GPS in the large DPW vehicles, the part-time court clerk is still in there, and as far as the water and sewer, no increase in rates for water and sewer for this year. I tell you guys every year that this is my favorite. We keep this right by the window in the clerk's office. So this pie chart is the answer to the question, what are my tax dollars paid for? So this chart shows a home of $125,000 with a tax rate of $12.74 per thousand, and then breaks out all the services and things that we provide our residents with a dollar amount. So this year you see there's a little bit of a change to it. So there's not only the dollar amount if your house is assessed at $125,000, but there's also a percentage that each of those pieces of the pie represent. So if you're a person like me and say my house is not assessed at $125,000, you can just find the assessment of your house, multiply it by the 12.74, and then you can multiply that by whatever percentage, and you can come up with a dollar amount for what you pay for fire, a dollar amount for what you pay for police. So if somebody really wants the number, it's there. Probably nobody but me would not want to see that number, but it's there for them. So with that, do you have a copy of the budget? I brought a packet so I could do a good presentation, but I left it in that room. I don't want to look like a fool, even though I am right now. With that, we'll talk about the budget. Sorry. So what I want to do is just go through the summary sheet for the budget itself. This year, for this year's budget, the total A, F, and G fund, the general operating fund, the water fund, and the sewer fund, we're projecting will cost $9,243,688. The general fund itself, which is the daily operating fund for fire, police, DPW, is $7,212,493. The cost of providing water to our water customers is $811,630. And the cost to send our effluent to Schenectady for treatment for the sewer is $1,219,565. So the water and the sewer costs are paid by people's water and sewer bills, so there is no revenues or anything else, and we're not proposing any change in the rates there, so I'm going to ignore those. In the general fund, we'll go back to that $7.2 million for the daily operations of the village. As I said, we're estimating revenues of $2,150,593 and the $350,000 that we're taking from the general fund. We add those together and subtract them from the $7.2 million. You get the amount that we need to raise in taxes, which is $4,711,900. Then you calculate the assessed value of the village. There's all the different calculations that go into that. The net assessed value of the village, the total value of all the properties in the village of Scotia, is $369,813,167. When we divide that into the 4.7 million that needs to be collected in taxes, we get a tax rate of $12.74, which is an increase in the rate of 1.81%, and the levy increase of 1.97%, which brings us in under the 2%. So, that in short order is the proposed tentative budget of the Village of Scotia. At this point, I'm going to open the public hearing. Is there anybody who cares to be heard on the 2018-19 tentative budget for the village? Seeing none, I'll close the public hearing, and I will move that we adopt the tentative budget as the final budget for the fiscal year 2018-19. Any discussion?
Mayor, I'd also like to commend the department heads and Maria for a great job. I know it was not an easy budget, and you all did an excellent job, so thank you.
Any other comments? Please call the roll.
Trustee Mathis?
Yes.
Trustee Gifford?
Yes.
Trustee Tiberio?
Yes.
Trustee Rizzo?
Yes.
Mayor Katsas?
Yes. The last comment I want to make is I want to thank the board for your support in this budget, because our employees, I'm a spokesperson here, but our employees worked hard in this, and I think you guys supporting what they did and the sacrifices they make is important. Okay, thank you, we have a budget. Phew. Item number 4, privilege of the floor. Is there anyone who cares to be heard on any other item other than the 18-19 budget? Seeing now, I'll close privilege of the floor, and we'll move on to item number 5, which is to introduce local law 2018A relating to the authorizing best value public contracts. So I don't know if you guys got an opportunity to read the law, but basically what this does is allows us to use the piggybacking method of purchase, so for whatever program there is for the piggybacks. So I think this is important because before I read the law carefully, it came to me and I skimmed it, and I was a little worried about our procurement policy and making sure we follow the rules and everything else, but this would allow the best value to be used only in conjunction with a piggybacking program, and it requires the review of the village attorney to say that it's kosher to do it that way. So an example of where we might use it would be if we do decide to move forward with a hot box, it's already been spec'd out, and what it does is it saves us having to spend the money to write a full spec for a large piece of equipment like that. We just piggyback on somebody else's. So would anybody care to introduce local law 2018A?
I'll make a motion.
Okay. Any discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Item 6 is a resolution committing funds for the completion of the Collins Lake Water Quality Improvement Project, which is a long name for the grant application that we're putting together for money for the flapper valve in the lake. So what they want to make sure of is if Senator Tedesco's office does come through with the money for us, and it's more than what the grant was for, that we're committed to finishing the project, so they don't give us money and then it goes to waste. Anybody care to move that resolution?
I'd like to make a motion.
Any discussion out of that one?
I'd like to say, if it wasn't for our tour of the parks, I don't think this would have come to fruition. So I appreciate the knowledge and that you provided us and all the know-how that you have, because it was real eye-opening to myself. And working with the senator's office, I'm very grateful that he is helping us explore this. So I hope it helps.
And once our application is in, so the application, just so you guys know, required some stuff that I needed to fill out. I need to sign it, Trustee Mathis needs to sign it, and it requires a budget, which I just got today. So, so I think all the parts are in place. So I don't know what the timeline from that point to when we would actually get the grant, but it looks like we're there. Okay, so do we make the resolution and
We
vote?
did a motion and a second.
Okay,
Just
so all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Item 7 is my comments to the board. Couple things. The court clerk and the police chief have been working on, for lack of a better word, I'm gonna call it a towing program. So we've got a situation where we've got, I'm gonna say several people who have accumulated many parking tickets, but they just don't pay them. So we continue to write the parking tickets. Now, one option that we've used in the past is that you could scofflaw them. But when you do that, according to the court clerk, the money goes to the state. They do the suspension of the registration and whatever, and then they have to pay, and the money goes to the state. The court clerk is looking at doing a program where after a certain number of tickets, and I can't tell you how many, we tow the car. And then they've got to get it out of impound, but they can't get it out of impound until they pay their tickets. She's also applying for a boot, because there's a thing, if you put a boot on a car that has accumulated too many tickets, not only do they have to pay their tickets and pay the whatever else is back up, you can also charge a boot fee. So she's looking at increasing our revenues and getting better compliance with our scofflaw parkers that way, rather than giving the money to the state.
Wait, when you get money for that, is it called booty?
You can. Or, you could say or. I met with Cy, and he told me not to use his last name because it's so long, and I couldn't believe it. It's about 13, 14 letters long. But Teresa knew right off the top of her head. I guess she knows the guy. So he's a village resident. He's lived here for about 20 years. And he's got 2 glass bottom boats that he plans on using as a water taxi on the river. So he's got a slip at the casino, and his plan is to have, right now, a 3-pronged taxi service that goes from the casino to the Scotia Landing docks to the lighthouse. And he wants to have a regular schedule, sell tickets if you want to go over to the casino from here or whatever. So he came to talk to me about that, and you know, I guess some of these ideas, I'm not really sure if they're well thought out, but this seems to be well thought out. I got him in contact with Charlie Palmer from the bid, about maybe they want a coupon sheet for riders. Got him in contact with Mark Lansing from Jumping Jacks, because if people are going to use that taxi and get on in Scotia, it's likely they're going to park in Mark's parking lot. And he wanted to talk to Mark about maybe a ticket kiosk or something, so people could buy tickets to ride the... So, and he also wanted to talk to someone from the Yukondal Temple, because of that, he thought that would be a good place, maybe he could work out parking there and not interfere with Mark's business. So I sent him on his way to talk to all those people, but he plans on starting in this spring, and we'll see if it works, so. Yeah. I got great news this week. Remember I told you that I had applied for hosting a workshop on, for communities that don't have complete streets policy in place yet. We were successful. We were the #1 application, as a matter of fact, so I'll be getting something in the mail this week. We'll start to, they want to come and meet with me to find out details of where we are and what we need. And then we'll start putting together the invitations for people to attend that workshop and get on our way to have a complete streets policy. I just want to give you a heads up that Jim Mastriani manages our Section 8 program. And just for a very short explanation, the Section 8 program in Scotia, it's a sponsored program. Scotia is allotted a certain number of Section 8 rentals, I think it's 98 or something like that. And there can't be any more than that, unless we as a board took an action to increase the number of rentals. So each year he manages that for us, and then he does a presentation. So next month's meeting, he'll be here for that presentation, just to kind of go through it. If you guys have any questions, you can ask. Our Poor Parade Committee lost Corey Lombardo. She moved out of the area, and it left a huge hole. So I sent out a mass email, I don't know if you saw it or not, recruiting people. And Maria kind of took it under her wing and actually contacted some people from organizations. So it looks like we have now about 8 people interested in getting involved. So the next meeting's tomorrow night. We're going to bring those 8 people, get them assignments, and kind of take the burden. The clerk's office has taken on the burden of putting this together, but we're gonna transfer it over to volunteers now and get it back to what it should be, so I'm happy about that. I think I told you guys about how Amador Builders, when they were doing the clearing in their properties for the project that's in the town, entered through village property to get to a piece of property in the town, but they entered through the village right of way, cut down 3 village trees, and then left it. They entered their property and cut trees in there too. The damage that they caused to our property and the value of the trees is over $6,000. So I had Lydia send Amador a letter telling them that we want remittance by the end of the month before we take legal action, and telling them that they don't have no permission to drive over our property, and so. We got some good news. Not sure if you remember this or not. So I think I characterized for you about the new pump station over in Schenectady and the Stockade, that they're gonna build that brand new pump station, and our worry was that they were gonna take our effluent into that pump station and then charge us, according to our contract, 10% of the cost of that station. So Andrew's been doing some homework on that, and it looks like we're not gonna be pumped to the pump station. There may be a valve that we have to pay for and all that, but, so they're not trying to pull something on us to charge us for that, the cost of that construction. That's the good news. The bad news is with our EFC grant, where we're doing the rehabilitation of our own pump station and taking down the old sewage treatment plant and all that, EFC is requiring us to do an evaluation of the force main, the main that goes under the river to bring it to Schenectady. Nobody exactly knows how old that is or what condition it's in, but the EFC now wants us to do a study of that. So we're going to be looking for grant funds to get that done as well. The fire department had put in a grant application for assistance to firefighters. What'd you have in the grant, Ken?
It was for turnout gear.
Turnout gear, okay. So we were turned down this year. So I talked to Ken. I think this is the second year in a row we've been turned down for a grant. So I talked to Ken, and what you can do is you can go to the grantor and say, I'd like an exit interview. And what they do is they go through your application and say you were strong here, weak here. When you do an application like that, they score it, and it's just who comes out. And it also is determined on what their priorities for that year are, and they don't tell you what they are. So if you're lucky enough to put in a grant for what is their priority that year, then you score better. But I think Ken's gonna get a hold of the grantor and just say, can you go over the application and let us know where we can score better. And then finally, the Schenectady Chamber every year hosts a Good News Luncheon where they recognize businesses that have had some kind of a milestone or something good going on with them. And Dairy Circus will be recognized at the Good News Luncheon, which is going to be May 10th. So if you guys are interested, I think Maria sent something around to each of
Yeah,
you.
just email me back and I'll register.
Are we looking to get a table?
I'll be in Jamaica,
Oh, okay.
so I'll be having a jerk chicken lunch. Right, and those are my comments. Item number 8, correspondence liaison special committee reports, trustee Mathis.
The visiting committee was canceled and rescheduled for next week, which I am not going to be able to attend because I'm going to a conference. And the Visit the Village is coming along nicely and scheduled right now for May 20th. And more information about that, working with some realtors and stuff. So, and I know the mayor talked to the department heads, and I appreciate again your support in that day. So,
Yep.
thank you.
I think at some point it would be a good idea to get department heads together and sit down with you.
Okay. We do that.
Trustee Tiger,
Nothing to report.
trustee Rizzo.
They had a car show meeting, unfortunately I couldn't attend because of some family problems. They're starting to put together a car show this year, and I will be attending the Memorial Day committee meeting tomorrow night.
Okay, great. The one thing I did mention in my comments was that we did get final approval for the new pumps for the Citgo. So at our next regular meeting, we'll be asked to do a special use permit for those additional pumps.
Chris, I don't have much to say, but I'd be skipping.
Oh, I did, I'm sorry.
So, we had a planning board meeting that I blew off because I took my father to the hospital. Was there anything important
We had a quick meeting, trying to think, Stewart's Lights.
Okay.
The Stewart's will be
Yeah.
putting a new lighting on the building, and they had it kind of match what Pumpkin Farms is doing in terms of the level, coolness of the lights or warmness of the lights. And the other one was Baptist is doing an addition. And it's kind of, I think, towards the back of the building, so not really noticeable. It's going to be a second and third floor. The first floor will be open. I think there'll be some parking included there. And it's not additional beds, it's just kind of, I think, moving some beds.
And we had a fire department meeting that I missed half of for a call, but it was relatively out
Sorry, I missed it. Item number 9, departmental reports. Any comments or questions on the departmental reports?
I just was curious, 32 calls on 3-2, what,
That was just when the winds and
unbelievable.
trees, wires, it was insane.
That sounds like it was, so I was looking through the reports and it stood out 32 calls within, I think, 4 hours or something like that.
Yeah.
Good job.
Anybody care to move to accept the departmental reports?
I'll make the motion.
I'll second.
All in favor, say aye.
there.
Aye.
Any opposed? Item 10, capital plans.
Make a motion to pay the bills?
I'll second.
Any discussion? And please call the roll.
Trustee Mathis?
Yes.
Trustee Gifford?
Yes.
Trustee Tiberius?
Yes.
Trustee Rizzo?
Yes.
Mayor Casper?
Yes. Item 11 is the approval of the minutes of the March 14th special meeting of the Board of Trustees.
I'll make a motion.
I'll second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Item 12 is the approval of the March 14th regular meeting of the trustees.
I'll make a motion.
I'll second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Item 13 is approval of the March 19th special meeting of the Board of Trustees.
I'll make a motion.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Item 14 is the approval of the minutes of the March 27th special meeting of the trustees.
I'll make a motion.
I'll second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? And item 15 is approval of the minutes of the April 3rd special meeting of the Board of Trustees.
I'll make a motion.
I'll second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Item 16 is new business. Does anybody have any new business for the good of the order?
Chris does.
I know. Okay, come on.
I got one.
Yep.
Should we do it or should I do it or?
Go right ahead.
Okay.
Go right ahead.
Well, I want to thank Spring, and what better way to thank Spring than I think we should switch over to our, I'm going to make a motion to switch over to our summer wardrobe for our board meetings.
I second. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Phew. You know what, it's funny because, you know I'm counting my days down. I got my suit out tonight, and I was like, I only have to wear this suit one more time, and my other suits twice more, and I'm gonna be all done, but now I'm even better off.
Kevin gets in trouble if he wears a suit at any meetings, so.
Oh, God,
We're gonna
put
put
a
a
cut my
jar.
tie or something.
Yeah, dollar in a jar for every time
Oh.
he wears a suit.
Any other new business before I get to my list? Okay, let's look at my resolution sheet. Okay, so first thing I would like to do is get a motion to introduce local law 2018 having to do with putting stop signs at South Falls and Sanders and the other intersection that Pete told us about in order to improve our traffic safety here in the village.
I'll make a motion.
I'll second.
Any discussion on that one?
Are we doing that? Is that?
Well, we're introducing it, we have to have the public hearing next month.
Okay.
Yeah. So I got a motion and a second, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Next, I would like to have a motion to authorize me to enter into the agreement with Jason for the work to be done with our EFC grant, not to exceed $36,000.
I'll make a motion.
I'll second.
Any discussion on that one? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Next, I would like to get a motion to, I have to look up how Lydia worded it, sorry, for the SAFER grant. That the mayor is authorized to prepare and sign a letter on behalf of the village stating that the village agrees to maintain their staffing levels and incur no layoffs during the period of performance of the grant, should the grant be awarded.
I'll move it.
Okay,
I'll second.
any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, and last is I would like to get a resolution. Says, be resolved that the Board of Trustees approves a one-time salary stipend to the acting village justice Kathleen Toombs in the amount of $1,000.
I'll make a motion.
I'll second that.
Any discussion on that? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Do you want to do the power resolution?
Yeah, I did see that one, so we'll get back to it.
This was separate.
Okay.
I mean, it's just, it's a whole.
So I met with the, once again, I apologize for all these new business things, but it was just unavoidable. So I met the guy from the power company. I told you about their proposal to put these two large DC cables from Canada to New York City that'll be installed along the right-of-way to our freight tracks here in the village. It's a 1.5 miles through the village, totally along the right-of-way of the freight tracks. The only road they'll cross will be Vly Road. They're working with DOT as far as crossing the bridge, the freight bridge.
Hey, maybe we could electrify the bridge so people don't.
Yeah, it's a great idea. So Lydia had a couple questions, and they centered around whether or not they would make sure they got all permits that they would need from the village here, including a street dig permit, whether there was gonna be a guarantee that when they went across Fly Road, that it would be restored to its original condition, and that was one out of one, but at any rate, so the answer to all those is yes, to Lydia's satisfaction. What this resolution does is just say that we endorse the project through the village so that they can put their application into whatever the governing body is. So they originally had their route approved, but it had to be changed because of the casino. So when the casino went, the route could not go through that area, and that's why it's going to go through the village and through Glenville before it goes back to its original route. Their projection, they would pay us property tax, and their projection is the first year that the project is up and running would be a revenue of $55,000 to the village, which to me is totally unbelievable, but
So we're
We'll see.
underground, Chris?
yeah, it's all buried.
But anything helps.
$55,000 is a pretty good chunk for us. So if that's true, it would be great. So that prompted me to ask when, the projected, if their application went in and the route was approved, when they would be doing construction, and he said between 2020 and 2023.
Wow.
So who knows if any of us will be
Don't
on
hold
that
your
one.
breath, yeah.
So at any rate, would anybody care to move that we endorse the project that I just described?
I'll make the motion.
Second.
Any discussion on that? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Anything else for the good of the order tonight?
Chris, didn't we have a new member?
His background check's not back yet.
Okay.
So, next month.
Anything else? Entertain a motion to adjourn.
So be.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Thank you.